Start with some poems from Mississippi. When I graduated from college, I actually graduated with an engineering degree, but I'd been ruined by taking a couple of English courses in my senior year and suddenly realized I don't want to be an engineer. I want to write poetry. So I did what I could. I joined Teach for America, and I was really excited about this. It's a volunteer organization to go teach in rural and urban schools. And ended up in the Mississippi Delta. Also happened to find out I love teaching, so that was a good thing. But the first few poems are kind of about that experience. And the first one's called Mississippi Delta. They ask what it was like, say green tangles of cypress steaming in the sun's white ache. Say a one-eyed grandmother rocking on a rockwood porch. Say cotton stalks clacking in the dead of winter, dry as bones. If they ask how it felt, say first the adventure of accent and miles of new road, then the fact of shotgun shacks and young girls dancing in dirt yards, say scarves of dust falling across their sun-desert shoulders, and say, finally, that rust-yellow dog with plum-sized ticks studding his ears, who sat beside your door waiting for dinner scraps, and one day curled up by the pecan tree and died. They ask what you heard, say a bass note of bullfrog, of gunshot, of 12-inch woofer blasts from the back of Elijah Love's Escalade. Say rivers were noiseless. Say the cicadas were like a scream. Say you never heard a train. When they ask what people always ask, how is the food? Just say pork butt, white bread, butter beans, stuffed catfish. If they ask about thirst, go ahead and tell them old men buried their faces in the new graves of paper sacks. Tell them boys sucked down cold cans of Mountain Dew just the same. Tell them houses burn, even though there's water. But tell them too about the rain. How it came like a river and you woke the thunder and the whole wet world trembled and shone. And if they ask anything else, tell them about the day you left. The Arkansas Bridge, a lifetime of iron, the far hills and trees, and in the rear view the sun. Rural places and many places in the South economic poverty is just a fact of life there, and racial segregation is still absolutely sort of the way things work. Not by law now, but just sort of by fact. That's just how it works. And so it seems sometimes like Mississippi's this, especially in my poems, I have to read them like, boy, no one's ever going to want to go to Mississippi if they read these poems. But I did love it, and there was wonderful things that happened to me there, besides finding out about teaching. One of them is I found out I was going to be an uncle for the first time, so this poem is called No Tremor. You know what it's like, the way the fog closes the world behind you, the gray smell of smoke through rain, how the wrought boards of shacks curve like scurvy bones, the sun grows so terrible as it sets over the river. But this day is a new trembling, a small current across the waters. Nothing will die on this day, for it was all cold dripping from the darkness only moments ago. So those are some Mississippi poems. But I travel a lot. I've taken my poor pickup that's stranded out there on 67 all over the place. One place I took it was Texas, and so here's a Texas poem. It's called Route 7 outside Nacogdoches, Texas. It is the time before you, for some reason, that I remember most. The Angelina River shedding its skin of light, the cypress water dark. A lone crow, the color of highway, the color of sky. I was happy. The music was ours and loud. Steel guitar, mouth harp, tire hum. I lit a cigarette. Possum winked its dark lids in the twilight. This is about desire, about the good pain inside distance. Later, the night gone liquor black, radio kitchen miles of static. It was only the ache of cicadas in the wind, the leaves in the wind. And I did not know I was driving to you. I was driving. We died in the wagon. We'd been sick since Wyoming, since the skin of things had begun to pop with sagebrush and knobs of rock, like the wrecked face of that bare-knuckled man back in Cincinnati. We said our little prayers, our fever, the angels came. They had no teeth, tongues thick as snakes, sky-wide mouths, lips cracked as ours. In this dry place, we decided even the seraphim must thirst. We ate the meat they gave us and were hungry. We drank the milk and were thirsty. We pissed where we lay and did not understand, yet we asked no questions. We knew the only answer was far the best. And here's what they did. Above a dry valley, up under a sandstone ledge, they shoveled us in. Born for the blood, our snapped and lolling bones, dust the wagon left settling on our lips. We might have had the look of lovers. Once we were given an orange. This was early, just across the Missouri, the grass thick, green willows weeping along the creeks. We would still walk then, a minute here or there, and on horses, muscle rump. And at the very hour of our death, again we tasted it, how we ate it, peel and all. Talk about the West and Western history sort of messing with myths or exploding myths, because I think we live with a lot of myths in the West, and many of them are simply false. Many of them were invented for us. And my grandparents were a big influence in my life. My grandfather was really one of the last men in Montana to sort of ride the open range. The Comanche Flats were one of the last pieces of fenceless land in all of eastern Montana. He was the youngest cowboy on that crew in the 1920s. And my grandmother, daughter of an Irish immigrant who could only find a place to rent on the Crow Indian Reservation. And so she was sort of witness to the almost destruction of the Crow Indians in the 1920s and 30s. And then slowly they've become a much stronger group of people now. But she was there at a time when it seemed as though they might not even make it, and many people hoped they wouldn't make it. So this poem is called Theodicy. On her way to the mission school, my grandmother saw how they put the Warman baby up in the crook of a cottonwood, wrapped him in skins, tied an old board to his back, and put him up in a cottonwood. That was 1923, and the Crow were dying. That was down on the Bighorn. My grandmother, just 6 years old, riding a paint horse up the dry Washington Creek, where she turned north each day. And that morning, Mother Warman set the dirt and weeds and wailed, tore at the skin of her neck and arms. Watch this little white girl come by, alive. My grandmother's eyes see nothing now. Her hair, white confusion, skin the color of driftwood, face a dry wash. Whatever it is, she says to me, lost again in story, you must love it. As you come from the river, let the wind shiver you. There will be babies in the trees, women taking strips of their own skin. I don't know if there is a God, but stay alive. Be sad of life. Stay alive.